Now today we'll be continuing the previous lesson. The last topic which I was talking about was various kinds of offer. You must have understood about them. Now we'll talk about the essentials. What are the important requirements of an offer? We have certain case studies as well in it. I want you to take your study materials and a rough notebook and sit and note the important points in it. So what are the essentials of a valid offer? I'll just write it down before explaining. Essentials of a valid offer. So what are the various essentials of a valid offer? The first one is, like always in a contract, it must be legally enforceable. It says that it must be legally enforceable or enforceable. It must be certain and not vague. Not vague. It must be communicated to the offeree. Then, most importantly, it must be made with a view to obtain assent from the other party. The next one, it may be conditional. And I'll take up the sixth point at the end because I need to explain it a bit in detail. I'll go to the seventh point directly. This is offer may be either specific or general. Specific or general. Offer is different from invitation to offer. The seventh point also will explain it in detail. Invitation to offer, and the last sixth point, as I told you, I'll explain it separately. It says offer should not contain a term that non-compliance of which comes to as acceptance. I'll explain to you. Explain about it. Thing is, till now you have understood what an offer is, what an acceptance is, what are the different kinds of offers, and what are the essential aspects for a contract to come into force. So the other day in the previous session we have been talking about various kinds of offers like special offer, counter offer, cross offers and all. Okay, in all these offers, what are the essentials? What is compulsory? First one is it must be legally enforceable. Legally enforceable means it should be capable of being tried in court of law. You just cannot give an offer. Say a wife offers to cook some meal in the evening and asks and calls up the husband for acceptance over phone. Do you think this contract is legally enforceable? No, that doesn't constitute as an offer. Say your friend had given an offer stating that he is ready to explain so and so lesson provided you pay him something. Can you constitute this or can we assume it as an offer? Usually no, unless and until it had been written on bond papers or it had been properly, notarized and stamped. Unless and until it is done in that manner, it can be considered as an offer. For an offer, I mean to say in terms of the Contract Act, it should be legally enforceable. Then comes, it must be certain and not vague. The terms should be very clear, which we have learned in Essentials of a Contract as well. The term should not be vague. Like when I give an offer saying that I shall supply 100 liters of oil to XYZ, that does not constitute an offer. I should specify what kind of oil, how am I going to deliver to it, what is the consideration I'm expecting. All these things also form a part of an offer. So the offer must be certain and not vague. Moreover, the offer should be communicated to the offering. The previous session also I took a case study called as Lalman versus Gauri Dutt. In this particular case, if you remember, there was this person, Mr. L, who had he wanted whose son was absconding or he was not found. So in such situation, he sent one of his servants, Mr. Gauri Dutt's son was absconding. He sent one of his servants, Mr. Lalman, to find his son. So in the meanwhile, Mr. Gauri Dutt had announced a cash prize stating that whosoever finds his son will be awarded with certain prize money. In the meanwhile, Lalman Shukla went out and then found his son and returned him back to Gauri Dutt. Now, do you think Gauri Dutt is supposed to pay the amount to Lalman? See, morally yes, but technically no. Why? Because this acceptor had whatsoever no communication with regard to the offer. The offer was made when Lalman was out of town. He was not aware of it. So definitely an offer should be communicated to the offeree. In case if it is not communicated, then the offeree cannot have any right over that particular offer. So this is a valid offer should be communicated to the offeree. The next one is the offer must be made with a view to obtain or obtain consent from the other party. Definitely, usually an offer should be made in such a manner that the other party accepts it. See, in case if an offer is made when you very well know the other party is going to reject it, it is definitely a waste of time and energy of making an offer. So the point itself is self-explanatory. It says it must be made with a view to obtain assent from the other party. The next one is, it talks about it may be conditional. See, conditional, here he has given an example, but what I want to specify is conditional is like you can always ask the offeree. Let's say the offerer is planning to sell his property. The offerer might put a condition saying that whosoever is purchasing the property should pay the whole amount within so and so date. That is a condition. And the offeree might also put a condition stating that offeree should pay the amount like partially in cash or partially through direct transfer in a bank account, say RTGS or NEFT or whatsoever. So it may be conditional. Definitely offer can be special or general. General we have discussed about Carlyle versus Carpolic Smoke Ball Company. See, usually general offer, I have explained it in detail. Again, to be specific, general offer is something wherein it is made to a group of people. A specific person is not identified. In a specific offer, the offer is made to a specific person. Definitely, before taking up offer and invitation to offer, I wish to take another point. That is, offer should not contain the term non-compliance of which would amount to acceptance. Very clever, right? Let me first write that down. Offer should not contain a term offer should not contain a term stating that non-compliance of an offer would amount to acceptance. Please read the statement carefully. Offer should not contain a term stating that non-compliance of an offer would amount to acceptance. What do you mean by that? Here this offerer is quite clever. He hasn't given any option to the offeree. He says whether you say yes or whether you say no, it will be yes only. Do you think that's a valid offer that should be enforceable in court of law? No. That is called as stalking. That happens in our old movies, not right now. There should be a clear-cut demarcation in an offer. Yes means yes, no means no. So offer should contain a term stating that non-compliance of an offer would amount to acceptance. Hope you're clear with it. Then we'll talk about offer and invitation to offer. Before talking about invitation to offer, I wish to give you a small example as to what an invitation to offer is. Then we'll talk about the differentiation between offer and invitation to offer. What is an invitation to offer? See, by now in your plus 2 commerce for commerce graduates, you might have an idea as to what a company is, what a share is. For the non-intended, see, company usually subscribe shares or calls for an offer. They say, see, we are establishing or incorporating a company. We need a money for it. You please give us some money. We'll give you a share in the company. Money, you become the owners of the company. Right? Usually what happens when a person wants to establish a business, he brings in money and then he spends it. Let's say in a company, a person has got an idea, but he doesn't have money. He doesn't have sufficient money. What does he do? He goes to the general public. He tells them, see sir, I have so and so idea. I need to execute it so that we can get real good profits. So what I want you to do is, what I request you to do is, I request you to subscribe. Here subscribe. Please understand the word subscribe. I'll subscribe shares in my company. That is, he is asking the other person to give him an offer so that he accepts it, gives them the shares, and that share money is invested in the company, execute that idea, earn profits, and these people are called as shareholders. They'll be given share in the profits. Okay? So here the basic concept is the shareholders, like when the company is going for subscription of shares, they place an advertisement in the newspaper stating that, or newspaper or any kind of media, either like online media or television media, whatsoever. So when they have gone for IPO or the other offer, IPO means initial public offer. Here, do you think the company is making an offer to the shareholders directly or offer to the general public? No, they are not making a direct offer. They are asking the general public to make an offer to the company. They are asking the general public to make an offer to the company. So what is that offer? Offer to subscribe for shares. That is, general public should first ask the company saying that I wish to take a share in your company. Share means I want to purchase, I want to contribute certain capital So you please give me some share in your company. That is called as, a person who does that is called as shareholder. But here, whom are you supposed to consider as an offerer? Please understand, the company is the offer, is inviting offers to general public. General public, I can use the word interested. General public are the offerers and company is the offeree. Okay, hope I'm clear. See, when a company goes for subscription of shares, subscription means what? It says we have got an idea, we want to execute it, we want money. So can anybody place an offer to us? That is called as what? Inviting offers. To obtain offers from general public. I'm sorry. To obtain offers for subscription of shares from general public. For subscription of shares from general public. Inviting to obtain offers for subscription of shares from general public. Here the company is asking somebody to make an offer, right? That is called as invitation to offer. It is usually for public at large. And then interested general public are the offerers when they go for subscription. And the company is the offering. So once that you're clear, I want you to please write what exactly is invitation to offer in page number 1.15 in a flowchart module in your books. So what exactly is invitation to offer? I'll be making a flowchart. Invitation to offer is something invitation to offer is only a circulation of an offer. And it is an attempt. It is an attempt to induce offers and it precedes a definite offer. And when does this invitation offer come? When does this invitation to offer come into being? When is invitation to, or I'll write it as when does invitation to offer come into being? Come into being. It's quite simple. It comes into being or it precedes. It usually precedes a definite order. Okay. Invitation to offer is only a circulation of an offer. Money, they want the general public to make an offer. It's only a circulation of an offer and it is an attempt to induce. Induce means they are asking them to offer. They are asking the general public to make an offer. An invitation to offer usually comes before making an offer, and that's all. To explain this in, so can we differentiate between offer and invitation to offer? Yes, very much. But before that, I want you to know about a case study. Usually, an example, first I'll talk about case study, which is about Harvey and Facey. Very clever case study. Very cleverly these people have explained about it. See, once plaintiff means the person who had sued the company. Plaintiff, please understand the legal terminology, is the person who had sued the company. In this case, Mr. Harvey, he had sent, in those days, telegrams were sent. Telegram was something, a short letter, hardly ranging not more than few phrases. So they have sent a telegram to the company asking them, will you sell me the bumper hall pen? And the second question was, telegraph the lowest cash price. So for this, Facey had replied saying that the lowest cash price is the price of that particular pen. I'm ready to sell it for is 900 pounds. And they sent a written telegram. Now, Mr. Harvey. Now he said, here are 900 pounds. Please give me my pen. But Facey, he did not return to him. He did not send him any pen. Now Mr. Harvey got very angry. He called up and he filed a suit in the court. So the court had explained, or the Privy Council had explained, Mr. Harvey, fine, what is the question you have asked, or what is the telegram you have sent? Mr. Harvey said, I have sent two phrases in my telegram. The first phrase says, will you send me the so-and-so pen? And what is the lowest price available? Then the court asked, what did Mr. Facey reply? Mr. Facey replied saying that the lowest price I can sell it for is 900 pounds. So the court said, see, Mr. Facey had never answered your first question. How can you say that your offer had been accepted? He had just given you an information stating that the pen can be sold for 900 pounds, which is the lowest. Other than that, he did not give you any acceptance. So your case does not stand good. Okay. So this is one of the examples, that is acceptance. This is a mere statement of intention. Here, Mr. Harvey had given an invitation to offer to Mr. Facey, stating that, okay, will you sell me that? Then he wanted Mr. Facey to make him an offer, a counter offer, stating that, will you buy that pen for 900 pounds or so? But here in this particular case study, Facey had not replied anything to Mr. Harvey. So definitely the case did not hold any precedence or any importance. Then example here he had given about sale of goods by auction can be taken as invitation to offer. In auction means what? An antique or a very precious item is put on sale. The sale is made to the highest bidder. Highest bidder means somebody who offers the best, the highest price. So here, who is the offerer? Do you think the person who is making an auction or the person who is bidding? Here, the person who is bidding is the offerer. The person who is actually making an auction is called as, the person is making an invitation to offer. See, the differences are very important. Difference between offer and invitation to offer. Invitation to offer, it's only a circulation of an offer. It's not, here we are not asking him to give us assent to do or not to do anything. Please underline the differences between offer and invitation to offer in page number 1.15. See, the first point being, or I better write it down. It's better I write it down. What is offer and invitation to offer? Offer is offer, invitation to offer. Offer is something, it's a final expression of willingness by the offerer to be bound by the offer. Invitation to offer is made with an intention to negotiate, or receive offers. So what is the major test? Please underline this point. What is the test? In order to ascertain, the second para, I want you to write in your books, in order to ascertain whether a particular statement amounts to offer or an invitation of an offer is usually with what intention the statement had been made. See, usually here an offerer, please underline this whole point in page number 1.15 in order to ascertain from there to the whole paragraph. See, in case of an offer, the offerer is ready to be bound by the contract. It is made to one single person. He gives his willingness provided the other person accepts it. Here, in an invitation to offer, this person is asking others to make an offer to him instead. And what are the various examples here are given in your study material? That is display of goods for sale in shop windows, quotation of prices, advertising in auction sales, and the first and foremost, an invitation by a company to the public for subscription of shares. So now we'll talk about various kinds of acceptances which are given in your page number 1.16 and 1.17. And so what is an acceptance? Well, the other day we have discussed, once again I'll just tell you, when a proposer or when one person signifies an assent to a proposal, then the accepted proposal becomes a promise, right? When one person to whom the proposal is made signifies his assent means his consent to the proposal, then the proposal is said to be accepted, and accepted proposals are considered as a promise. Here he didn't say anything about the acceptor. A proposal or an offer had been accepted, it becomes a promise. So acceptance is also just like offers. Do we have different types? Yes, we have it. Let us learn about the legal rules with regard to acceptance. Then I'll talk about one particular word about acceptance. So what are the various legal rules with regard to acceptance? Legal rules for a valid acceptance. What are they? Acceptance should be given by the person only should be given only by the person to whom offer is made. Case study, very important. Boulton versus Jones. The next one is, the second point is with regard to acceptance must be absolute and unqualified. Acceptance must be communicated. The next one is acceptance must be in prescribed mode. Reasonable time. The other 3 points I'll explain it once I explain this particular 4 points. The other 3 points shall be explained after explaining these points. So what are the legal rules for a valid acceptance? There are total 7 points. We have to discuss about the case studies as well. So usually, first I'll explain about Boulton versus Jones. See, Boulton, one Mr. Boulton, he had purchased a company from Brocklehurst, if I'm not mistaken. That is Brocklehurst. And Brocklehurst, one of the creditors of, I mean to say, one of the debtors of Brocklehurst was Jones. Okay, I'll call him Bro, so that it will be easier to explain. So, Mr. Brocklehurst sells goods to Mr. Jones. Okay. So, after a few days, Mr. Boulton had purchased the company from Brocklehurst, changed the name of the company to Boulton. So, as per the business and in good faith, as per the business tradition, Boulton also started supplying goods to Mr. Jones, thinking that Mr. Jones would pay money to Mr. Boulton. But surprise, surprise, Jones said, "Sorry, I will not pay you any money." He was obviously shocked. Definitely they went to court of law. What did the court of law say? Stated that Mr. Jones is correct. Because see, Jones had given an offer to Mr. Bro and not to Mr. Boulton. So in such situation, as the acceptance is not given to Mr. Boulton, the claim of Jones is correct. That is, he received the goods without paying any money. So what's the mistake Mr. Boulton had done? When he bought the company from Brocklehurst, he should have got his contract renewed from Mr. Jones. That is acceptance. That's why we say that acceptance should be given only by the person to whom the offer is made, not the others. Nobody can give an acceptance on behalf of Mr. Brocklehurst. Hope you understood this. Then the acceptance must be absolute and unqualified. This is in continuation with the previous discussion about counter offers. See, Mr. A said that A asked Mr. B or had offered Mr. B to sell his, Mr. A had offered to Mr. B to sell his house property at 50 lakhs. Mr. B had explained, okay, I don't want to purchase it at 50 lakhs, but I'll purchase your house property at 40 lakhs. This is called as what? Cross offer. This does not result in acceptance. Acceptance must be absolute and unqualified. Hope you're clear with it. These examples are given, which we have already discussed, so I'm not going deep into it. The third one is acceptance must be communicated. In these, I wish to write 3 more points which says that acceptance should not be conditional. Continuing with this, should not be conditional. It should not be deviant. Acceptance should not be deviant. Acceptance should not have too many conditions. In such situation, acceptance is not considered valid. For this, let us see the case studies. This is Brogden versus Metropolitan Rail Company. Mr. Brogden sent a draft agreement. Please, I am reading these case studies so that you can be specific about the verdict rather than explaining. I'll read it first and then I shall explain it to you. Please see the wording over here. That's very important because this is law. We are not supposed to change it. B. A supplier sent a draft agreement relating to the supply of coal to the manager of railway company via Aarhus Metropolitan Railway for his acceptance. The manager, I mean to say here the manager of the railway company. Yeah, Mr. Brogden had sent an draft agreement. Agreement means an offer. You can take it as an offer for supply of coal to the rail company. Then, Mr. Manager, please see the wording. The manager wrote the word approved on the same and put the draft agreement in his drawer of the table, intending to send it to the company's solicitors. Solicitors means what? People who work for the company in general or people who work for good of the company. Soliciting means somebody who wants good to happen to the other person, like friends and solicitors. You might be seeing in your wedding cards or birthday cards, friends and solicitors. Solicitors or solicitors is somebody who wants good to happen. Here in this particular case, in legal terminology, it means the employees. Solicitors for a formal contract to be drawn up. By an oversight, the draft agreement remained in his drawer, held that there was no contractor as the manager had not communicated his acceptance. Yeah, quite common sense, right? So here, a person had sent an agreement. In short, a person, Mr. Brogden company had sent an agreement, draft agreement, stating that I'm ready to supply so and so tons of coal to the company. You pay so and so money. But what did the manager do? He had just stamped it as approved and kept it in his drawer. Do you think, how will Mr. Brogden know that it had been approved or not? I'm talking about the days when there were no mails or telephonic conversations. In such situation, we definitely would find fault with manager because he had not conveyed his acceptance. The next one is Mr. M offered to sell his land to N for £280. N replied purporting to accept the offer but enclosed a check for £80 only. He promised to pay the balance £200 by monthly installments of £50 each. See here the acceptance. What do you observe here? Here the acceptor had changed the contract or the offer itself. Here he had added some more terms to the offer and he said, see, provided I cannot pay these £280 immediately. What I'll do is I'll pay £80, then I'll pay the other pounds, £50 later. See here he has put certain conditions. In that case also acceptance is not valid and contract is not supposed to have taken place. See, these case studies can come in exams, so I want you to carefully listen and concentrate. The next one is Mr. A offers to sell his house to B for 1,00,000 rupees. B replied, I can pay only 80,000 rupees for it. The offer of A is rejected by the B as the acceptance is qualified. Qualified means what? Here he has put a condition stating that I cannot purchase your house property for 1 lakh, but I'll purchase it for 80,000. He himself is making another counter offer. Later, B changed his mind and is prepared to pay 1 lakh rupees. Now, this is a new offer given by the B. The old offer given by A to B stands cancelled because why? The acceptance is deviant. Deviant means it is not as per the terms of offer. Later again, B felt no, this house property is worth 1 lakh rupees, I'll pay. Now, do you think the old offer had come into place? No. Now, the law sees as though Mr. B is making a new offer altogether to Mr. A. The old offer stands cancelled. So, these 3 points can be definitely asked as a case study. See, the next point is quite easy. Acceptance must be in prescribed mode. See, in case if the offerer wants the acceptor to give his acceptance via letter, then it should be in that. He cannot call the offerer and say, see, I have given my telephonic asset, you have to take it as acceptance and complete the contract. No. Whenever an offerer puts a particular mode of acceptance, the same mode has to be followed. So, this is acceptance must be in prescribed mode. Then let us talk about the next 3 aspects, that is time, next one is time, the next one is mere silence is not considered as acceptance. So, reasonable time, it's a simple point to understand. A reasonable time will be usually given for an acceptor to accept it, or for the offeree to accept a particular proposal or an offer. That reasonable time definition had not been given in law books. Offer should be, as per the Contract Act, should be accepted within a reasonable time. Okay. An offer should be, as per Contract Act, reasonable time had not been mentioned. Different acts might give you a different rules, but as of now, you please remember the words reasonable time. This is important. Then comes silence. Mere silence cannot be considered as acceptance. Like our old generation or previous generation, they used to say Maunam Ardhangikaram. In Telugu, there is a saying which goes Maunam Ardhangikaram, means silence is half approved. Don't go by such terms in legal terminology or legal words. Here, when an acceptor or the offeree is silent, that does not mean he has given an acceptance. Please take this case study. This is also very important. Case law is Feldhaus versus Bingley. Here, Mr. Feldhaus, Mr. F is an uncle and Bingley is a nephew. Bingley sells horses. Please verify the case law, or please concentrate on the case study while I am studying. F offered to buy his nephew's horse for 30 pounds, saying, if I hear no more about it, I shall consider the horse mine as 30 pounds. Here, mind you, Mr. F is very, very clever. He sends a letter to his nephew stating that, see, I'm ready to purchase a horse from you for 30 pounds. And if you're silent, I'll take into consideration that the horse is mine. That you are going to sell me that house. If you're silent, I'll take it as an acceptance. In simple terms, he has written it saying that in case if you're silent, then I'll consider it as accepted. The nephew did not reply at all. He forgot. Then, and in course of time, the nephew sold that particular horse to another party. Now, Mr. F, that is the uncle, was really flabbergasted or very, very angry. What did Mr. F do? He had filed a suit against his nephew B. But the court said, sorry sir, you can't take mere silence as a proof of acceptance, whatever your offer says. So this is also one of the important case studies. You can just go through it. Then comes acceptance by conduct or implied acceptance. Implied, as we have already said, by word, I mean to say by acting in such a manner wherein you get a proof that the contract is accepted. The offeree had behaved in such a manner wherein you are sure that the contract had been accepted. I'll read out. Section 8 of the Act lays down, please underline this line, from here please underline, the performance of the conditions of a proposal or the acceptance of any consideration for a reciprocal promise which may be offered with a proposal constitutes an acceptance of a proposal. Please underline the thing. The performance of the conditions of the proposal or the acceptance of any consideration for reciprocal promise which may be offered with a proposal constitutes an acceptance of the proposal. What do you mean by that? Shall we take an example in the meanwhile? Please see the words conditions of the proposal or the acceptance of any consideration for a reciprocal promise which may be offered with a proposal. What do you mean by that? When a tradesman, for example, when a tradesman receives an order from a customer and executes the order by sending the goods, the customer's order for goods constitutes the offer which has been accepted by the tradesman subsequently by sending the goods. It is a case of acceptance by conduct. Let me explain this in brief. After understanding about valid essentials of an offer, valid essentials of an acceptance, you might get a bit confused about the specific last point which says implied acceptance. What do you mean by that? Do you think here there is a contract which has given all the essentials and all? Here the contract had been entered into by conduct. Conduct means the way the both parties are behaving. They have behaved in such a manner that it looks that an offer had been made and an acceptance had been received. In that case, it is called as an implied offer. To explain this in detail, he had taken an example of a general business transaction. A tradesman, or you say a businessman, he had received an order from, say, Mr. Z, asking him to send some 500 kilos or 500 tons of cotton, specifying the details of cotton, how it has to be sent. See here, there is only an agreement, mind you. He had just drafted a letter and sent it to Mr. Businessman. Now the businessman, there's no acceptance, nothing had been written and had it been again sent to Mr. Z. The businessman, as described in the conditions, have sent those 500 tons of cotton to Mr. Z. What does it purport means? What does it show? It shows that a contract had taken place with between Mr. Businessman and Mr. A. It's only based on conduct. Conduct means the behavior of Mr. A and the businessman. So that says acceptance can be, need not be directly oral, written also. Acceptance can be implied. Implied means something the actions depict as though he had accepted the terms of contract from the offerer. Yeah, his conduct, his behavior. The moment the offerer asked him, in this case Mr. Z, to send him 500 bales of cotton, Mr. Businessman had immediately sent it. So what does it prove? The conduct of the businessman is in such a manner that an acceptance had been made by him. That is called as acceptance by conduct or implied acceptance. The other topics I'll be taking up in the next session. Thank you all.